to the November meeting of the Anne Arundel County Human Relations Commission. I'm Eugene Peterson. I'm the chair of the commission, and we are happy to have our commissioners and any other guests here for our meeting. The Anne Arundel County Human Relations Commission is required by statute
Recording in progress.
To investigate housing discrimination issues. And in that vein, we have a form on our website. I believe it's both in English and Spanish that people can access, and they can send us alleged housing discrimination issues, complaints, and then we will review it and we will decide what course to take. We have the ability to go to mediation, to have hearings, and also to seek compliance through fines and other actions. We also are a commission that is dedicated to the principle that Anne Arundel County, as the county executive, Stuart Pittman, and the county council agree should be the best place for all. And that means that we should fight to eliminate any vestiges of discrimination in the county. And we attempt to do that through a variety of means, looking at data, analyzing data in terms of hate bias complaints. The police department collects that data. Looking at issues that come to us from the community. We've held forums. We had a forum on critical race theory. And we also recently had a very successful event in Pasadena at Downs Park celebrating unity. And we had a lighting of a tree on the premises to emphasize our commitment to having unity in our school community and our community at large. At this point in time, I'd like to go on, and I would just say, and finally, that we are a part of the statutory requirement in the county council charter to have a human relations commission. That was done in the 2020 election cycle, and that's very important for people to know. At this point in time, I'm looking to see if we have a full set of commissioners. We have someone that's sitting in for Commissioner Karpowitz, Lisa Sorrow. Welcome, Lisa. Glad to have you here. I see our secretary, Ms. Hatcher. And at this point in time, let's take the roll, Commissioner Hatcher, and see if we have a quorum to conduct our business.
Okay, yes, sir. Good evening, Chairman Peterson, Vice Chair Clapsato, and all the commissioners, Human Relations Officer, Ms. Smith, and our EEO and Fair Housing Assistant, Ms. Clements. I'd like to welcome Anne Arundel TV, and at this time we'll do a roll call. When I state your name, please say present or here or just acknowledge. Chairman Peterson?
Present.
Vice Chair Clapsato?
Here.
Commissioner Gaskin?
Present.
Student Commissioner Goodman,
Present.
Commissioner Edwards,
Present.
Commissioner Agbola,
Present.
Commissioner Call,
Present.
and as stated before in attendance for Commissioner Karpowitz, it's, I think I want to say Commissioner Sorrow.
Correct. Present. Mhm.
And at this time, it appears that
We have a quorum, I believe.
we do have a quorum.
Yes.
But am I missing anyone? Okay, and we do have a quorum.
Great. Why don't we go to our first item, approval of the minutes from September 15th meeting. I think that the one item, Commissioner Hatcher, that I saw, and I did not catch it in my review, was when we list, and this will come as a result, it'll be codified by our bylaws, but when we list commissioners, we should put the three officers, one that's two that are well, all three that will be required by the bylaws, which would be the chair, the secretary, and the vice chair. So if we could make that correction, that would be very helpful. That's the only change that I saw. Any other changes from other folks, or we'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes with any technical changes like the one I just recommended?
I move that we accept the minutes as presented with any necessary corrections.
Okay, that's Commissioner Gaskin. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, is that Commissioner Edwards?
That is, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, let's move to our second item on the agenda, which is we had the Unity event. All the commissioners unfortunately weren't able to be at the event, but we had a after action Zoom meeting, and I thought it would be useful to discuss what outcomes that we saw there. So at this point in time, I'd ask any of the folks who attended that meeting to raise a hand, or and I'll recognize you, and then you can go ahead and say what you thought. Anybody? Some of you attended the after action meeting, so I'm waiting to.
Oh, apologies. So yes, attended. Do you want us to just acknowledge that we attended the after action?
No, I'd like to have a discussion for the public of what we saw that went well, what we saw that didn't go well, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, when I said outcomes, that's what I was referring to.
Okay, because I attended the after action meeting, but I was not at the event
Right.
itself.
Okay, and anybody that, okay, Commissioner Gaskin.
Yes, I attended the event and the brief as well. I think that it went well. The only thing that I commented on the debrief, excuse me, I have a cold or something going on here, is the marketing, so that we would, when we do it again, if it's the commission's desire to do it again, that we address marketing a little differently. I know we concentrated primarily on the schools and with the parents, and I think that we expected the parents to get the word out, but I think we need to have a broader reach out to the community as a whole, and just do a little bit more outreach. But I think that overall that it went very well. I think the people that attended really walked away with the message that we were intending to portray, and that they all received something. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you. I see Commissioner Dedoni has joined us. We're talking about the after action report on the Unity event at Downs Park. Any other comments from those that attended?
Chair Peterson,
Yes, Commissioner.
I apologize to my fellow commissioners that I could not attend the after meeting. I thought overall, the concept and the programming were really outstanding. I would agree with Commissioner Gaskin that we need to reach out, and my wish is going forward that we open it up to the entire community. I thought the setting was perfect, the food, and I thought the staff. I especially want to thank, Chanel and Asha for the work that they did. I mean, it was not easy, smoothly. And I would also like to thank Commissioner Goodman. I think we see in Z a very eloquent young woman who has I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry, Z. I get confused with my pronouns. I'm always going to be this way. I'm 82. It's okay. No, but they are truly exceptional. I mean, it's not just being a lovely person, and the way they communicate and the sincerity and the thought that went into our presentation, I was just blown away. I think in terms of I'm sorry, I'm going on a little long, Chairman Peters.
It's okay.
And by the way, I'm not trying to ask they for a date. I'm just. I loved the student participation. I would love to see that expanded because they were enthusiastic and we had a lot of variety. So I look forward to doing future events of this nature. Thank you.
Chairman
you.
Peterson, Chair Peterson, do you mind if maybe Asha did a wonderful job of having kind of a debrief template? Yeah. Maybe I should share that to kind of help with this discussion, or should we just keep kind of going the way we are going?
You can share that through the chat if you'd like.
Okay.
Any further? Commissioner Edwards, do you have something you wanted to say?
No, but I believe Commissioner Goodman does.
Oh, okay. I'll get there.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that kind of to reiterate what Commissioner Gaskin and what Commissioner Clapsaddle were saying, that I do think that it was a really good event, and I think that the student participation was a really important factor as well. And I do think that it did have the intended impact on especially the students who were in attendance. And and I think that the community pledge portion was a good part of the event as a whole, as well as I do think student impact is a really, really important thing to mention and to take into account when planning future events.
When you say community pledge portion, could you describe what happened there?
Yeah, so everyone in attendance was kind of given a pledge sheet, and then I believe it was Pete Hill who kind of led the group in reading the pledges, and he did also point out different parts for everyone to kind of pause and really take in, and I did think that portion was very impactful.
Thank you.
Chair Peterson.
Yes.
One thing, and then I'll turn it over to Mary. I also wanted to say how great it was, while he is silent a lot of the time in our meetings, to have Tosin be there for the pre-planning. And I loved meeting his family. His little boy just killed me. I mean, he loved those snacks. And his beautiful wife came. And it was the kind of thing that I hope that will encourage in the future, not just from ourselves, but for the families and students that attend these events, because it's really for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you. The planning carefully included movement, instrumental music, song, speaking, silence, and light. we often make our events, all of us, it is the tradition in our culture that our events are spoken word. The diversification to allow us to receive and give on all the different channels was wonderful.
Thank you. In terms of talking about the getting the word out on the event, one of the things I think that probably could have helped would have been, and I think the school district would help us with this, is to use more than just the Connect Ed to get the word out. And also, we could utilize, I think, if we planned earlier, and we talked about getting an early start on a Unity event such as the one we did at Downs Park, continue to plan earlier to get a much better spread of the information that the event was happening throughout the community. And I think those things could be worked to enhance the event. HRO Smith, are there any items that you would like to share with us?
Sure. I thought that the event was really successful, beautifully done, wonderfully collaborative. And I just want to take an opportunity to mention Dr. Gillens, whose support was really instrumental to the success of the event. Obviously, the students who participated, the principals who supported the event, really also helped to make it a success. And I think, you know, in terms of conceptualizing it as a pilot of sorts, I think that we're really poised to move forward, you know, should the commission wish to do so. I think that we have the right information, the right ideas, the right elements, and we learned from, you know, the areas that could be improved. So I know that I would certainly support doing it again. And I know that the county executive was thrilled to participate and has indicated a willingness to participate in the future. So
That's great. It gives us
Commissioner Chair Peterson, may I
Yes.
add on to that a little
Sure.
bit? I've been one of the loud mouths that always was trying to get a superstar to be our featured speaker. And I was singularly unsuccessful, even though I was prepared to raise the money for whatever it was. But I have decided that I was on the wrong track because I thought the speaker that Dr. Gillens brought was enormously inspirational. And also, I was absolutely blown away by Pete Hill. I mean, he is such a stable, strong voice. And I'm going to keep my mouth shut about celebrity guests. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess, is there any further discussion on the event? Is there a general feeling among the commission that this kind of event should be something that we should pursue next year, start earlier in planning? I'm not asking to take a vote right now. I'm just saying, is that general consensus? Okay, looks like we have a general consensus. Maybe we can, why don't we put this on our December meeting schedule and have a formal vote on it after we have the information in the chat. Asked HRO Smith to send that after action report out for everybody and let everybody know that we're gonna take that up for action in January. And then the additional issues that would surround that would be where to do it. And I think we got some data from the state on hate bias reporting, and it looks like the incidents that have the greatest occurrence, and we'll talk about this later, might coincide with maybe where we'd want to continue to pursue the unity event strategy. In any event, we'll put that on the agenda for our December meeting. Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to ask HRO Smith to lead us through a discussion of, and then we'll have a vote on our proposed bylaws. We need bylaws. They're important, they're required, and we've worked with the Office of Law to come up with what I think are pretty useful
Stuff.
a pretty useful outline of bylaws. So HRO Smith, go ahead.
Sure, I am just pulling that document up now. So good evening, everyone. As Chairman Peterson referenced, the Office of Law has updated their draft of the bylaws in preparation for them to be adopted by this group. The bylaws are, this document is the document that guides the commission's operations procedurally. And so it outlines the mission of the commission, the powers and duties of the commission, membership, the terms of membership, how a member might resign. There's a provision for the chair and vice chair. There's a provision for the secretary. It outlines the manner in which meetings should be advertised. It defines a quorum. There's a provision for telephonic and electronic participation. It speaks to the ability of the commission to create committees and how to amend the bylaws. And so this document was shared with the commissioners in advance of this
Yes.
meeting for their review. And so it, behooves the commission to adopt the bylaws, provided that there are no objections to it, so that there is a governing document in force.
Right. And I would point out a couple of things that people should take into consideration when they look at these bylaws. The bylaws commit us to quarterly meetings, so we can't have fewer than 4 during the year. We can have more, but you have to have 1 a quarter. Also, there's an attendance requirement. If you miss I think it's 25% of the meetings without excuse, that's triggers the ability to formally ask you to resign from the commission. So I think these are important aspects to the work that we do. And so I would ask everybody to be mindful of that. The other items, I think I would agree with HRO Smith, are things you would find in any bylaws of any that govern the actions and activities of any organization. So having said that, any discussion from any of the commissioners on the bylaws? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to move to a vote to adopt the bylaws, and I'd like a motion.
I move to adopt the bylaws as we've received them.
Commissioner Daydoni has moved to adopt the bylaws as they have been received. Is there a second?
I second it.
Commissioner Gaskin has seconded the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, carries unanimously. We now have bylaws. That's exciting. That's great. Okay, we'll move to our next item, which is there are a couple of items that our HRO, Human Resource Officer Smith has been working on. And one of them is a co-sponsorship with the Anne Arundel Community Development Corporation, a housing documentary film, Testing the Divide. And it's scheduled for airing at Maryland Hall in January. And so HRO Smith, could you give us further? I know you sent out a brief description of this, but we also have Commissioner Carper, which is representative from the development organization. So maybe the two of you could talk about why it makes sense for us to sponsor this film and what the outcome we're expected to see from it.
Sure. So I can kick it off and then Lisa, jump in wherever you feel it's appropriate. So one of the things that I have been working on in my position as the Equal Opportunity and Human Relations Officer is a plan for fair housing enforcement. As you all know, the county passed a fair housing law a few years ago. And so one of the things that I'm charged with doing is standing up that law and the enforcement of the law. We have adopted procedures here in this commission. And so I've sort of divided the work into, 5 to 6 sections. And that's just consistent with best practices for fair housing enforcement. So one, it's really 5. One is the complaint process and managing investigations. One is sort of dealing with mediation of complaints in between parties who are having issues. One is testing, right? And so testing involves the use of trained volunteers who apply for apartments. They go to places where housing should be offered to see whether the person offering the housing is going to comply with the law. And it serves a really important evidentiary function in terms of fair housing cases so that we know where there are potential violations happening. And it also helps to inform our outreach efforts, right? And so that's sort of prong 4 is outreach and education. And so the purpose of this event that we're talking about doing on January 25th is it's a film screening to show a documentary called Testing the Divide. Testing the Divide is a film that documents really a deep investigative report that was done by New York Newsday. And they explored housing discrimination in Long Island. The reason why this is a really important film is because it shows how insidious housing discrimination is. It shows that in spite of the Fair Housing Act, there are lots of ways for people to be discriminated against in the area of housing. It shows what fair housing violations look like. And it shows how in the absence of testers, it's very difficult to get evidence that this is happening. And so we really see this as an opportunity to screen the film and have a panel discussion about fair housing discrimination as a social justice issue, and the work that we think it's very important to do in that area. We're looking to partner, of course, with ACDS, and Lisa is a really important partner and champion of this work. We're seeking co-sponsorship. So the proposal is that it would be a partnership between the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, which is the office that I sit in my day job, the Human Relations Commission, and ACDS. ACDS, Lisa can tell you what ACDS does and why they're such an important partner for this work. Lisa.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for welcoming me as Erin Karpowicz's designee for tonight. What Arundel Community Development Services is the county's Housing and Community Development Agency. Most jurisdictions in Maryland have a Housing and Community Development Department within county government. But about 30 years ago, our county determined that it would be better for the county if the agency moved outside and became its own nonprofit. So we are a nonprofit organization, but we operate as the county's Housing and Community Development Agency, and we provide support and backup to the county in housing development issues. We've run the county's emergency rental assistance program since COVID started. That $40 million that came into the community went through our office, some of it directly and some of it through sub-grantees in the community. And we also run the continuum of care agencies. We organize those and provide their funding through grants. One of the things that we do that's really important is we coordinate with agencies that promote the county's goals in terms of housing. And so some of that's affordable development of affordable housing. And another big part of that is ensuring that housing is fair and equitable to constituents throughout the county. So what we have done over the last couple of years is coordinate with an agency out of Baltimore City in an attempt to begin a testing program, like Asha was talking about, in our county to identify areas where the county needs improvement and could obtain some improvement, perhaps through education, and if not, some encouragement, subtle encouragement. And of course, COVID came along and sort of cut that a little short early on. But we are hopeful to get that testing program up and running very soon, so that we can identify where the county can do better. And this film and the screening will be designed to just sort of get people thinking in terms of, what we can do to identify issues, identify where we could provide some help and some guidance and some education if necessary, and to get people thinking in terms of what housing discrimination is. It can be in any area of housing, could be rental, it could be the sale and mortgage, it could be appraisals. I just sent a story to Asha tonight about appraisal discrimination. So those are all areas that we're very interested in, and we're really excited to partner on the movie screening. I think it's a great idea to bring attention to the issues. If anyone has questions about ACDS, you can ask too, because it is a little bit different than most county agencies.
Well, do you have a budget? Where does your budget come from?
For ACDS or
Yes.
for the movie?
For ACDS.
So ACDS is a private nonprofit, but sort of quasi-public. Our funding is through federal, state, and private grants. And the county is a big part of our funding source, of course.
Oh, the county contributes too. Okay.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Because when you say you're private, public, I wanted to make sure we knew who all the actors were.
Yeah, essentially, we are the county's housing and community development agency. We're just
Okay.
sort of outside the county in a nonprofit form.
Okay. Do you have a list of additional, or are you seeking a list of additional sponsors? One that comes to mind, I think, is the county NAACP. I know one of their social justice advocates, Stephen Waddy, is very interested in housing and housing discrimination issues. In fact, he's raised those questions with us, I believe, Asha, several emails. Is that not correct?
Yes, and I'll tell you, my conversations with Stephen Waddy have helped me to conceptualize, you know, this event and why it's such a good idea, because Stephen points out, and I think accurately, that housing discrimination, it's one thing to talk about it in terms of, you know, people who are renting and that sort of thing, property managers, but he's also very engaged on the realtor and the lending side. And that is really, really important. And the thing about the film, a lot of people hear housing discrimination and their eyes kind of glaze over because they don't understand what it is. But housing discrimination really is foundational. So this is one of two things that we're working with ACDS on, right? So one of them is going to be testing the divide to show people what housing discrimination can look like, steering, making comments about school districts, right? So when you go to buy a house and a realtor says, oh, you don't want to be in that district, all of these things sort of create our neighborhoods, you know, our communities, opportunities to develop wealth. And so the movie is, so to your point, Stephen Waddy is really interested on that lending side and that realty side. And I think that if people don't know that that's a part of housing discrimination and understand how it works, they can't be engaged in the topic. And so we're proposing the movie night. The other event that we're proposing to do is around the homeownership gap. And we're looking potentially to do that a little bit later, maybe April during Fair Housing Month. That's still in the planning stages, but it's really a look at the persistent gap in homeownership nationally, and also very much here in Anne Arundel County. Dr. Pam Brown's Poverty Amidst Plenty report was recently released, the most recent one, and it's not just her, but she's kind of the face of it and behind a lot of the research. And what we see is that that gap is very much persistent. So it's sort of a comprehensive effort. Stephen Waddy and I have talked about this, and I'm very hopeful. I've asked him to, you know, he mentioned that there were some folks in the NAACP who were very interested in housing. And I did ask him to get those folks together so that we could do some sort of a call and really talk about what they think, you know, might be important as a part of the engagement, you know, in this.
What about the lending institutions? Are we going to contact them? It seems to me that when you talk about lending, 15 or 20 years ago, we directly called it redlining. And now I think what we ought to call it is Jim Crow or de facto redlining. It's still happening.
Very much. And it's happening in the appraisal space. As Lisa said, she just sent a great article. And actually, I don't know why I haven't sent that to the commission. It was sort of a prominent issue where a Black family got their house appraised, and it was appraised for, I think it was more than $100,000 less.
So much.
Than it should have appraised for. And so the family asked a white friend to show the house and it appraised for more. And so I hope I have that right. Is that right, Lisa? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And in fact, this is a new occurrence. The article I just sent to you, there was one that was really prominently spread around in social media and in the news about a year ago in New York. This one, I believe, is in Seattle or somewhere on the West Coast.
Mhm.
And yet nearly more than a $200,000 difference in a 3-week period. just by removing, they called it whitewashing, the home, and they removed every bit of the family's personal items, any artwork that would indicate what their ethnicity was. And 3 weeks later, this home that had appraised for $600,000 appraised for nearly $1 million.
Wow.
And so it's very, very insidious, and in areas that you really would not expect it to be. And what it does is it leads to holding people back, right? Because if this family is going to sell their house and gain family wealth that they're going to carry from one generation to the next, they're starting out selling this home for $200,000, $300,000 less than another family would be able to sell it for. And that's how you lose that family wealth that you could be passing on in the future. So it's really insidious, and it's really pervasive at every stage, not just at the rental, a landlord that won't rent to someone in particular. It goes all the way through the borrowing, lending, neighborhoods where people are suggested they would be, you might like this neighborhood, you might feel more comfortable here, you shouldn't go there, all the way through selling that home and making money or not, and going forward. So it's a really important issue.
There is no discussion of systemic inequity or institutional inequity without a discussion of housing discrimination. And a lot of people don't understand it that way. It's not the cute issue, it's not the hot, it's not really a hot issue. And we need for people to understand and really become engaged. So we're hopeful that you guys will co-sponsor. But to answer your question, Chairman Peterson,
Yes.
which was about the lending institutions,
Yes.
we do have, so I've put together a pretty comprehensive list of invitees for the live aspect of that event. I haven't shared that with Lisa yet, so I need to, but we've looked at all of the community groups. We've looked at a lot of folks. And so we'll make sure that some of the lending institutions are part of it. I think the lending institutions will also be pivotal for the second event, which is the event on the homeownership gap.
Right. Would they be part of you talked about a panel, would you consider putting them on the panel at this meeting?
I think it's an idea. In terms of testing, I don't know that the banks or the lending institutions play such a pivotal role. So one of the confirmed panelists is Cleveland Horton from MCCR, who is a deputy there, and he can talk about the enforcement and how the testing sort of helps with the enforcement. But we certainly will, it's in the plan to engage the banks in this work.
And finally, I don't know what committees the Anne Arundel County delegation sits on, but somebody must sit on one of the housing committees, and certainly they would be. We need to invite all of them, I think, but we would also, if there's somebody that sits on a housing panel at the state level, that we'd like to have them on a panel to find out what the state is doing in regards to that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good idea. Thank you for that.
Chair Peterson.
Yes.
Lisa, one of the things that I've been in a lot of these meetings, and I've taken seminars on fair housing and all of the rules and regulations, and I'm saying this to all of us. It kind of becomes like a drone. But when you spoke this evening, you were telling stories about real people, real situations. And I think it's like within the LGBTQ plus community. We have, for the last 25 years, we've been telling our stories, and we've made tremendous progress. We're not all the way there, but we've made tremendous progress. And I would urge us to do that. The other question, just as a practical matter, should we be trying to connect with the Anne Arundel County Board of Realtors? Should we try to connect with the Annapolis Chamber of Commerce and other chambers of commerce within our county to talk with them about this very issue and tell our story to them? I'm just asking. I have no opinion. It's a lot of work. But, you know, we found out something. We're strong. We are a small group. We're influential and we're committed. We have this passion for what we do.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the more awareness you can bring to the experience that people have, the better. And so that people see it, you know, what they may see it in their everyday life and not really realize what it is. And so the more that we can make the stories visible to a broader group, the better. Because then people see it. Then they're like, oh, that's right. That's what I saw in that film. That's exactly what I saw. That's what's happening here. Wow. And it brings them along. And I think I think the more that we can make folks aware, the better.
I guess at this point in time, I'd like to see if there's any further discussion from any of the commissioners, H.R.O. Smith or Lisa. Okay, hearing none, like to entertain, I'd entertain a motion to co-sponsor with ACDC and others, the film in January. And that would also require that not only do we co-sponsor, but we actually show up for the event. So with having said that, is there a motion to co-sponsor?
I move that we co-sponsor the event and the follow-up panel discussion with ACDS and with Asha's office, because I know I'm getting the entire wording wrong.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I second that motion.
Okay, and it's been properly moved by Commissioner Gaskin and seconded by Commissioner Daydoni. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that passed unanimously. So we'll be co-sponsoring, and Asha, if whatever help you need from the commission, maybe a couple of commissioners might be interested in giving you a hand if you give them a little direction in terms of what you need.
That would be lovely, and I appreciate it. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Now I'd like to move to our next item on the agenda. Asha sent us the state, and this is the most recent 2021 hate bias report. It's a big report, but she did help us by pointing us to page 17, which is where Anne Arundel County's data is. And so I wonder at this point in time, maybe starting with Asha, we might get your views on the report and then have a generalized discussion from commissioners about what do we do with this data. One of the things that I did last year was, if you go back and look at our annual report, you will see a map in there which mapped out where our hate bias incidents occurred in the county. It was color coded, and I'm hoping that given the updated data, that we would dump that into a similar graphic chart and put that in the report, because I think that visual reporting and the visual aspect in a report is important, because it gets the attention of the folks who read that report, because it goes to the county executive and all the county council persons. So I think that data in the 2021 report kind of tracks, unfortunately, with what we saw in the map that I put out last year. So Asha, go ahead and lead us through this discussion.
Sure. Thank you for that. So the first thing that I would like to do is draw your attention to page 18 of the report. Page 18 is a summary of the total incidents. I think this is a valuable table because it shows trends over time. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of hate bias incidents and the incidents that are documented here. We must remember that these meet specific state criteria for what constitutes a hate bias crime. Okay.
Well,
And
they're more than criteria. They're in the statute for the state.
that's
There's
exactly
statutory
right.
requirements.
That's exactly right. Which is a little different than some of what we get monthly. So I know that I frequently report numbers when I do my report during these meetings. Those numbers are higher because those incidents are incidents where there's an element of hate or bias, meaning someone might make a comment, they may do something and it appears that there's some motivation that is protected class-based, but it may not rise to the level of a crime. And I know that we've had this discussion before. Major Hassan-Push has walked us through those distinctions, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of that as a reminder. So what we see on this chart is that in 2021, there were a total of 39 incidents. That number is down from the high that we saw in 2019. In 2019, there were 81 incidents, and there's been a steady decrease. So in 2020, there were 59. In 2021, there were a total of 39 reported incidents. And so the next thing, is how many of those incidents were verified, right? So we know that in 2021, I think it's a total of 1 incident that was verified. 45 incidents were inconclusive, and there was 1 unfounded incident. And I think it was 39 reported, 1 verified, 1 unfounded, and there were a bunch of inconclusive reports, right? And so from my perspective, the inconclusive reports are a little bit difficult to understand. This report does do a good job of outlining what inconclusive means, what verified means, and what unfounded means. I would recommend that everyone take a look at the definitions that are at the beginning of the report to get an understanding. I think from a trend perspective, it's good that, there's a decline. I think Major Hassan-Push would be better able, as he did last year, to talk to this group about the factors that might influence the numbers and the story that the numbers tell, right? So we know that we have some influences that were a little atypical over the last few years, including but not limited to COVID. So we're looking at limited contact between people. We're also looking at interventions that have been introduced to reduce incidents. So I think, my recommendation would be that Major Hassan-Push come back as he has in the past and give us a little bit of insight into the numbers. That said, we did get a really great offer, and I know I sent this to you in advance of this meeting. Izzy Shaikoff is on the board of the Maryland Commission for Civil Rights, and this is one of their initiatives. They are looking at this report. The board is looking at this report, and so she's asked if there is information that we as a group, that the commission as a group would like to see in the report that's not currently there. I don't think she's making a promise to be able to get things included in the report, but I think what she's saying is if there are concerns about the format, the content, if there's information you'd like to have, this is an opportunity for this commission to make a request to her and let her know what your concerns about the report might be. From my perspective, one of the things I'd like to know is a little bit more about the fact patterns, right? So in terms of the case that was verified, I'd like to know a little bit more about what happened. In terms of the inconclusive cases, I'd like to know a little bit more about what happened obviously within the confines of the law. They do give demographic information, but I'd like to know a little bit more about the types of acts, what actually occurred. And so that would be, one of my recommendations.
Izzy Shaikoff is a tremendous ally and a very bright woman. She's had a lot of experience in this field and she speaks with a lot of reality. And so I agree with you, Asha.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for the group. So that's all I have in terms of an overview.
Yeah, I think what we would be asking for would be maybe a little bit that looks reporting that looks like what they do in Anne Arundel County when they actually talk about the issues. So yeah, that would probably be helpful and useful, because I don't believe that the state report says, well, this is school-based, this is community-based, this happened over in a shopping center. It doesn't give it gives you a generalized idea of what the incidents are and where they occurred, but not enough data to really, I think, make some intelligent assumptions about what interventions might be needed. I think that's what you're getting at, Asha.
It is. And I think it's also more relatable. Right now what we have are numbers like, I think Commissioner Clapsaddle said previously about the housing, we don't really have stories. And I think it would be helpful for people to know what types of incidents we're talking about.
Agreed.
So I think one question for the commission is, how would you like to make your recommendations to Ms. Shaikoff and when?
Okay. Any feedback from commissioners? That's a good question.
I would love at least the next day to look over the data and give any feedback by end of business on Friday. But if folks need longer, love to send it to you, Asha, if that works.
Okay, why don't we? You're saying by the end of the week. I guess Asha, what did you have in mind? Did you want commissioners to report in that kind of time frame, kind of like what Commissioner Edwards is suggesting?
Sure. I think, if you want to send me individually or collectively, some sort of a document, I'd be happy to forward that on to, I can format it and get it together. Chanel can help me to do that. And then we'll go ahead and send it to Ms. Shaikoff at MCCR.
Okay, well, given the helpful comments from Asha and from Commissioner Edwards, I'm going to ask all commissioners to review the report. Asha sent it out. Take a look at what is being presented and make your best judgment as to what you believe should be additive to the report, and send your comments to Asha by the close of business. That would be Friday, or that's what you're suggesting, right, Commissioner Edwards?
I'm going to leave that up to Commissioner Asha when she's able to get to the collaborative document aspect of it and give us a timeline based on their availability. I think I was just giving it for myself mostly, but working collectively, we can extend that as to what works for your office.
Well, why don't we say by the end of Thanksgiving week, people can get it in. So on Friday, after you've digested your turkey, make sure that you send your comments, commissioners, to HRO Smith, okay?
That works
Fantastic.
fine for me. Thank you.
Now we'll move to your report, Asha, the Human Relations Officer report.
Sure, thank you. So this is a pretty brief report. I think we've already talked about the enforcement program and what we're doing, just so that, the commission is aware. That we have procedures for fair housing complaints. Those procedures are posted on the commission website if ever anyone asks you for that. The fair housing law is also posted on the website in the event that you're asked about that. We have entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Anne Arundel Conflict Resolution Center. They will be providing our support for mediation in connection with complaints that are reported to our office. In terms of testing, as you know, I'm working with ACDS. And so ACDS is providing us with some support around the testing and basically the development of a testing program for the county to test for fair housing issues. And then we're also partnering with ACDS for training and outreach. So they're collaborating with us to use some of the resources and funding that they have to support fair housing. And so we're very fortunate in that regard. So that's just an update for you. We talked about the events, the outreach events that are in the pipeline. In terms of county executive's office updates, it's my pleasure to report on behalf of the county executive that he has been reelected to another term as county executive. The race was conceded last night, and so he has spoken to Jessica Hare, so I feel comfortable saying that that's official. So that's the big update from the county executive's office. As is expected, there'll be some staff changes and other things. And so we just look forward to what's coming over the next few weeks to months. I believe inauguration is on December 5th. In terms of events, the Dallas PACE Awards, I think, is big on the agenda. I know that there's been some communication about that. The Dallas PACE Awards are usually given during the Martin Luther King breakfast. And I don't know if Chairman Peterson wants to jump in here to talk about
I'll jump in. And I have to start out with an apology. Commissioner Apter?
Oh, he's muted himself.
Oh. Okay. I want to apologize to the commission. We were under a strict timeline. The Martin Luther King Breakfast Committee got a slow start. I know that because I chair the committee. And so I asked internally for Vice Chair Clapsaddle to pull together commissioners. And you got I think Commissioner Daydoni was part of this and looked at the award. The way that the committee works the awards is they don't have a criteria. They leave it up to whoever is granting the award to come up with a criteria. It will be useful in the future for us to basically, and I will ask Vice Chair Clapsaddle to generate what criteria we're looking at. It's a humanitarian award, so it would follow that it would have to do with general actions and activities that mirror and reflect the kinds of humanitarian actions that Dr. King would endorse, would believe would be useful to create, as he used to say many times, the beloved community. So given the short time frame, we came up with a nominee that we believe has, and I sent that information out to all the commissioners, which we believe has the requisite community activity to merit this award. And that person that we'll be giving the PACE award to this year is Abby Ellicott. Abby is I believe she's a clinical psychologist, but she is more known for her active involvement with the LGBTQ plus community, and especially with LGBTQ issues relating to our public school system. She was an active participant with the Unity Tree event, and she continues to, she was a strong advocate for our testimony in support of the changes that the school district has made in their policy and guidance surrounding LGBTQ plus students and staff. And I think you'll remember that we were in agreement with the suggestions that the LGBTQ plus Student Alliance that she's a part of presented. So for all of these reasons, we sent her name to me, the chair of the committee, and she will be our nominee. Anybody have any questions? I promise you that next year we will have direct criteria that we will send out probably in February to every commissioner, so that if you have a special person, individual in your community that you believe would merit this kind of recognition, that we could recognize them.
Thank you for that. In terms of police reports, the last information that I have is for the month of September. Major Hassan Push was working on trying to get October to me. Unfortunately, I think he was unable to do that, but I can report on October at our next meeting. So in September, there were a total of 13 incidents. 4 of them were ethnic, 8 of them were racial, and 1 was religious.
Are they any, did he get into whether they were school-based, community-based?
No, that information I don't have available this month. So you'll get a better breakdown, and the dashboard actually will have been updated to reflect the school-based complaints, so we can present that when we have Major Hassan Push come in to talk about the numbers a little bit more, if that's okay.
Does the commission have the ability to access the dashboard?
No, I'll have to present it to you. The one that, so there's one dashboard that's externally facing, and that's the one that has the state, the incidents that meet the state criteria. The internally facing dashboard is the one that captures all of these reports, right? Like, so the incidents that might not rise to the level of crimes. And we were asked very specifically not to share that because it might confuse people who don't know the distinction, right? So we can, but we will present that to the commission, and so it'll be available for everyone to see.
Okay, and when we present it to the commission, the commissioners must understand that they cannot go out into the community and spread that data because it differs.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right. Okay, and so in terms of fair housing complaints and inquiries, and the status of some cases, we had one very successful pre-complaint resolution at a local building where there was a concern about sidewalk access. So this was a disability complaint that we received. We reached out to the owner and property manager, and they have agreed to voluntarily make the appropriate modifications to the sidewalk in compliance with the ADA, so that we don't have to go through the formal complaint process. So my office will be actively monitoring that. Their attorney has promised to give us regular updates about the status of the work. Last I heard, they were fielding proposals, and that information was communicated to the complainant. So that's a big win. that's a check in the box for us. And we do have one new inquiry in the fair housing space.
When you complete those, do you routinely send them out to the commission so we know?
So typically,
Should we do
you
that?
know, I have not sent it to the commission. Typically, I've sent a letter to the, the complainant and the
Mhm.
respondent, and then I think I've let you know via email. But if you'd like for me to send just like a little synopsis, just so you guys know, we're actually in the process of developing a case tracking system, right?
Ah.
So that will be a lovely thing because it will allow me to pull reports of the status of cases on a routine and regular basis. We're working with OIT to get that done. And so it'll probably be a little bit easier even for me to give you case status once we have that up and running. But in the meantime, if you'd like me to email the commissioners with obviously information that doesn't have any personally identifiable details, but the outcomes of these cases, I can absolutely do that.
Yeah, I think that would be useful. And
Sure.
with the caveat that it's internal data, not to be shared with anybody, etc.
That's right. That's right. Happy to do it.
Okay. Commissioner Hatcher, I believe we have something brewing there with the Annapolis Human Rights Commission. Could you tell us what's going on between you and Commissioner Hurley?
Yes, certainly. So we have received our the February 2020 forum responses for the hate bias forum that took place during that time. So our next step of what we want to do is reach out to those that volunteered or were interested in joining the subgroup or subcommittee to start reviewing and then coming up with some ideas as to how we want to put into action some of the responses that were received. So we'll reach out with to Chuck, and then from there, like Commissioner Dedoni, who has volunteered, will provide those documents so that we can have it for your review, and then two, come up with a date after holidays, of course, where we can start seeking out how we want to embrace the community and different civil services to put into action how we're going to fight against hate bias in the community.
Okay. And I might just jump in at this point in time and say that what Commissioner Hatcher is referring to is that, as some of you will remember that were on the commission, we had the hate bias community meeting at Anne Arundel Community College in February of 2020, I believe it was. And
Yes.
then
Pre-COVID.
Pardon?
It was pre-COVID.
Yeah,
That would have been
pre-COVID.
2019.
2019, okay. And then we had breakout sessions, and the breakout sessions discussed what had happened in the meeting, the forum, the presentations, and asked for recommendations on what to do. And the groups came up, there were 9 groups, came with a series of recommendations. And so that's the data that Commissioner Hatcher, Commissioner Dedoni, and Commissioner Hurley are looking at. And that might then lead to another forum similar to the one that we had on critical race theory, or some other vehicle to address hate bias issues. That's pretty much where we're at, right?
Right. It's still in the very, very beginning stage of planning and trying to form some ideas as to how do we really want to enforce some counteractions to hate bias, whether it just be an education form or bringing maybe groups together and having discussions
Mhm.
but this is still in the pilot phase,
Okay,
to
Mhm.
say. So
it's still in the planning phase,
still in the planning phase,
but
exactly.
it'll be a joint venture with the Annapolis
Annapolis.
Human
Mhm.
Relations Commission and the Anne Arundel County Human Relations Commission.
Yep.
Okay, any other items that came up in their meeting of any
That
note?
was the main topic that we discussed, outside of the approaching Dr. Martin Luther King's breakfast.
Right.
So, but those were the two main big subjects that was discussed during
Okay.
this meeting.
Thank you for
Oh,
your,
and there was also something about someone had brought up the hate bias reports, and then maybe possibly trying to utilize some of current incidents or accidents and involving that into, our plan of countering hate bias in the community. So we're looking at different angles and avenues. But if anyone is interested, please, it's still in, as I said before, in the beginning phase. Let me know, and I will include you on our next meeting invite.
okay, thank you, Commissioner Hatcher. We'll now move on. We have no old business, new business. Commissioner Apter had raised this question about in-person meetings. So I guess the question is, what are we going to do with that now that we're I won't say we're pre-COVID, we're still COVID, but not the kind of COVID restrictions that we had prior to going to the Zoom meetings. I'm opening the meeting up for general discussion on that. Okay, hearing none, I'm not going to put it on the agenda again, and we'll continue.
Sorry, Commissioner Daydoni has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
My hand
Commissioner
was up from before. I thought I'd just leave it up until you got around to it.
Oh, sorry.
But I'm, you know me, I'm always willing to say something. I know the value of occasionally being together. For me, the ability to attend regularly really depends on these Zoom meetings. I can work up until a minute after the meeting starts. And my beloved can interrupt me in the back and say, I've got dinner ready, and I can put the camera off and eat.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
and I don't think I'm the only one living on that kind of schedule. Somehow the world shifted during COVID.
I agree. Good point. Any other discussion? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So the other item. Asha, I should have asked this question earlier. Back in 2018 and 19, especially when the hate bias incident report was so high, and it was highest for Anne Arundel County, what we told ourselves and what we heard from others was it's because we're reporting so many things. Has the reporting criteria that shows up in the hate bias report changed? Is that an explanation for the relative drop? We are no longer, the numbers are much lower, and we're no longer the highest in the state. We used to look at the numbers and say that is reflecting more than anything else. You know, if we looked across counties, the degrees to which people in counties are reporting. And in fact, the most cautious anti-racist county may be the one with the highest numbers. And counties that we know are historically racist and contemporary lynching counties will report no hate bias incidents. Can you help me look at the data that way? It's a question of the reliability and bias of the data where we can have some additional insight.
Sure. So I'll say two things. One, I don't want to misrepresent the facts, but my understanding is that Anne Arundel County continues to report more than many other counties in the state because of the county's own criteria for capturing the data. So that said, I don't want to speak to whether the state has adjusted their criteria. I think the best person to speak to that is Major Hassan Push, and he is very well versed on the data. There were some changes I know made to the reporting system and the uniformity of the reporting system. I will say that as we evaluate potential changes to the report, he did highlight one thing for our consideration. And so I'm glad you actually returned us to this issue because I forgot to say it. He asked us to be aware that the reporting system across counties must be uniform. So as we're thinking about adding information, consider that it's going to have to be implemented across the state. That's the first thing. And in terms of a timeline for implementation, consider that all of the counties are going to have to be able to capture the data and figure out how they're going to change their reporting to be able to capture anything new. So rather than, anticipating that the implementation would be this year, perhaps it's proposed this year and implementation starts next year.
Am I correct in saying, and I will be channeling my NAACP colleague, Mr. Stephen Waddy, as I approach this,
Sure.
that the hate bias incidents that get reported are the ones that occur from somebody in the public. They are not incidents such as police shooting of Black people, or verbal abuses, or even disciplinary abuses of Black and brown children within the school system, or within a hospital system. The other forms of institutionally tolerated racism that still exist. Am I correct in that assumption?
So I can say that this report captures crimes as defined by the state, hate bias crimes as defined by the state. And so if something is not reported or characterized as a crime, I don't think that it's captured by the report. So inequitable treatment or disparate numbers, sort of things that maybe are, I'm trying to find the language to describe it. I understand what you're saying, right? So adverse impact, right? Things where you see like a disproportionate effect of a policy, or a disproportionate effect of a practice, or just general disproportionality, for example, in shootings or whatever that is, unless it's characterized as a crime and captured as a crime, it would not be documented here. Again, though, I think that these questions, which are really good questions, underscore the need for Major Hassan Push and perhaps some members of his team, or if he has a state counterpart who he thinks would be appropriate, I think it would be really helpful to have them come and walk the group through the report.
I would like to take advantage of my position as a commissioner, and this time to say on the record that I value the information we get, and I'm starting to be concerned that it may be in some ways a trivializing of some very egregious wrongs if it doesn't capture police shooting. The report today on the findings by the head coroner out of Baltimore City, and the frequency with which he found the death of Black people in police custody to be non-homicidal, not murder, versus the frequency with which the death of white people in police custody was ruled as murder. And that's an example of pretty serious disparity. I sat in the courtroom, the trial of the man who shot Richard Collins, and watched the judge make the difficult decision that he would be dropping the hate crimes portion of that charge. And I can understand why it gets dropped. But this again was a pretty obviously racially motivated murder. So I feel obligated to say publicly on the record that what we have is important information, but it does not tell the story of what it's like to be Black, brown, poor, or mentally ill in any of Maryland. It doesn't tell the complete story. Thank you for indulging me.
Not a problem. Thanks for your comments.
And I'm sorry, I'd like to go on the record as agreeing with what Commissioner Deoni just said. I don't think this is necessarily reflective of the real issues that we are facing. And Asha, I don't know if those are some of the types of things that you want us to send you that we would like to see included in the report that you are going to pass along.
I think that you should send me whatever your thoughts are.
Okay.
And I am certainly not going to be censoring whatever you send. I think that one thing that I could do is put together a document that we could look at and maybe review collectively before it's sent to Ms. Shykoff. But I think if those are concerns you have about the report, one recommendation that I'd make is to go through the report and see what the report purports to capture, not just with respect to our county, but the other general information that's in the report. And if there are concerns about this report, then I think that's one thing. And it may be that there are concerns that this report might not be the avenue, but there's additional information that just as a community we like to have. And the question is, where do we get it? Maybe it's not this report, maybe it's somewhere else, but we can, I think, vet that once we look at this document, right? So I would send everything, all of your feedback.
Right. And when you send all that and we get that, when we have that discussion, I think we also then would have to look at what the state statute says. Because I think a lot of problems here that are being discussed are things that state legislators and senators could fix. And then the larger question is, if we have this police accountability board, how does that fit in with some of the issues that Commissioner Deoni talked about? So it'll be an interesting discussion that we'll have in the future. But do send in all your concerns.
And one thing that I would say, just to Mary's point, to Commissioner Deoni's point, is that if what you're feeling is there's something that I want to know and I don't know where to find it, or I don't see it here, like there's a question I have and it's not answered here, I think that's exactly, I think then you're on the right track, right? And just indicate what it is that you're looking for or what it is that you can't see. And then we can figure out how to formulate it and frame it for Ms. Shykoff. And if we determine that some things maybe need to go to some other places, that will be a decision for the commission to make.
Thank you very much, Human Relations Officer Smith.
Fine. Thanks.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay. We're now at our good and welfare portion of the agenda. Any announcements? Hearing none. Our next monthly meeting is on Thursday, December 15th. It says 7:30, but it's actually 6 o'clock. My mistake on the agenda. Any member of the community that would like to attend this meeting should go to the Human Relations Commission section. That's the December 15th meeting on the County website for meeting information and for more information pursuant to the Maryland Open Meetings Act. Okay, at this point in time, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second that motion. I second that motion.
Are you making the motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I can make the motion. I thought you
Yes.
had already done it. I apologize. I make the motion for us to adjourn.
Okay, thank you,
I
Commissioner.
second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Daydoni. All those in favor signify by saying aye. This is a non-debatable motion.
Aye.
Hi.
Anybody opposed? None opposed. I want to thank all the commissioners and all the folks who joined us through our Zoom Anne Arundel County TV link or the webinar, which I think is the same location. Thank you for joining us, and let us all continue to work for greater unity and compassion in our community. With that, I will move to adjourn. So thank you and good night.
Recording stopped.